Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
The holidays start here at Kroger with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Kroger has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. Liverpool, top of the league. We probably could just hang up and leave it like that. But before we do that, we have got a million things to discuss. So I am delighted, as always, to be joined by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. David, how are we?
Yeah, good. As you say, Liverpool top of the league. So should be a good positive one. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, with fingers crossed, touch wood and everything. We're on a good run since we started doing these at Monday lunchtime. So we can't change that. Superstition. All that type of thing. Yeah, nothing can change at all. So, ladies and gents, we'll be doing the normal. We'll be talking through the victory at Crystal Palace, where we'll be talking about performance, players individually. There are many, many talking points. We're going to have to hit the referees or talk about VAR and honest thoughts on that. We'll look at the normal players in focus. We'll talk about Jurgen Klopp's press conferences because there's a lot being digested from that recently. And as normal, we will pitch the questions that you want us to David to get his thoughts. And I mean, David, this one, it almost feels like we're going to say like a Jamie Vardy style quote, but play something, but take 3 points. I mean, that seems to be the Liverpool mantra at the moment. I mean, we are top of the league, and it's been an interesting week where we beat Sheffield United away, we beat Crystal Palace away. What's your kind of honest gut telling you about how we're doing? Are you just kind of, as long as we keep getting the points, that's fine? Or have you got sort of slight concerns bubbling about what you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair for people to be concerned at times because the performances have been poor for probably 3 games. And I think the Palace one was probably the worst one of all, really. You know, Klopp said it himself in his 77 minutes of just terrible football. And then, you know, pull it out of the bag and dominate at the end, helped a little bit by the red card, of course. So I think it is fair for people to be concerned, but you've just got to take sometimes the context of this period, haven't you, and how busy it is, how difficult that is for players. And fluency is the first thing to go when you get any sort of fatigue. And when you're up against sides who, you know, there's been context to every game really, in that Fulham are clearly in unbelievable form at the moment. So that on reflection looks like a good, really, you know, a better win than it did at the time. Sheffield United getting the manager back, that boost that they got from that. And then obviously coming into this one, Crystal Palace were at home where it's always difficult. Liverpool have had some difficult wins at Crystal Palace down the years, even when they've been flying. But also because I think Roy Hodgson sort of feels a little bit of pressure at the moment. And I think translated that to his players that this was a big game where they had to put in a performance and get a result to sort of turn things around. So, you know, you just take the individual context of the games and you can see why Liverpool have found it difficult. And the fact is, if you're going to find it difficult in matches, and that is going to happen a lot to you over the course of a season, then can you come away with the win? And Liverpool are doing that. And I think, you know, there's some luck involved in that, but there's also a lot of quality, a lot of mentality, a lot of grit. So I suppose it depends if you're glass half full or not. But I sort of tend to side on optimism generally, and I just think you've got to look at how busy this has been and how difficult it can be to get through, and the huge steps forward that Liverpool have taken from last season, because they would have lost possibly all of these games, and to come away with the points is absolutely massive. And they've now got hopefully a slightly easier period coming up, and then some Anfield games that should look after themselves in terms of motivation. And kind of looking forward to all that. And I think I'm in positive mood coming out of it. And I think you have to be when you win 3 out of 3 like that.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as it might not be the performances that people want to see, I mean, that's 4 victories in 10 days, isn't it? Even 4 games in 10 days will take it out of the legs. We are just we started to have a few knocks of key players as well. So you've got to look at the positives. I mean, that Palace game, normally when I ask you this, we've usually got about 5 or 6 contenders and there's a big spread, and it's great to sort of eulogise. Might be a shorter talk when I say who was the man of the match on Saturday for you this time.
Yeah, so I think it was harder, because I think the difference between this and the sort of Sheffield United game was that Sheffield United, Liverpool weren't very good in terms of, they lacked that fluency again, but the sort of really restricted Sheffield United in terms of chances they could create. It was very much a ground out win, whereas this was kind of just a poor performance where they just pulled it out of the bag at the end. So as you say, sort of more difficult to pick out man of the match. But I did think Virgil van Dijk was class again in everything he did. He is unbelievable at the moment. I think he's absolutely flying and been as key to anyone as this, when you're in this period where you've got to really grind it out, to have a defender like him operating at the peak of his powers again has been absolutely massive. And again, probably the main difference between this season and the last really is Virgil van Dijk's contribution. Obviously, the man behind him, Alisson, as well. Absolutely. I mean, he never let his level drop, but sort of the couple of saves that he made on Saturday, just unbelievable. And the reason that you throw him in instead of Quavine Kelleher, who's done well while he's been in, but that's the reason after 2 training sessions that you say to Alisson Becker, you're straight back in the side, because there's nobody like him in world football. But I give credit to those 2, and I think, a couple of other okay performances, but I think the man of the match for me has to be Harvey Elliott. I just think to come on and do what he did, in terms of, he just changes the game for me. It's not just a goal that he scores, which is brilliant, but he lays on that assist that is marginal, doesn't he? But he completes 23 out of 23 passes, and that is absolutely what Liverpool needed. They needed to start. It's no coincidence that he comes on and Liverpool start playing the best football. And I know you can say about the red card, but he actually draws the yellow card driving forward. He's the man who gets fouled, which says everything about what the impact he was having. And like I say, completing 23 out of 23 passes, he moved Palace around, moved them around, and the gaps just started to show. And Liverpool hadn't done anything like that. They were just trying to get it up really quickly and making nothing out of it. But he had the patience and the sense. And what I kind of loved most about what he did as well was that every time he was picking up those pockets of space and he was doing it better than anyone, Liverpool were looking to him. They obviously have these players. He's so young, and yet these Liverpool players were like, okay, you take the responsibility. We know you are an absolute class act. And I think that says everything about how good of a footballer he is. And he was the 100% the architect of Liverpool coming away with the win there. And I think he's just a marvellous young player. And I'm so excited to see what he ends up becoming. He's the super sub at the moment, but he will be more than that for Liverpool eventually. But if he can keep to this super sub role this season and keep having these big impacts and be as good when he starts the odd game as well, then it's really exciting. And I just think he's a marvellous footballer, as I said, and really, really enjoyed his cameo. I thought that made him man of the match, even though he didn't play that much.
Yeah, true. There wasn't really many. I think Jurgen Klopp said it, didn't he, about the poor performance? There wasn't many contenders after 76 minutes, etc. And I think the thing about Harvey, it felt like the England under-21 Harvey we've been seeing, where he dominates those games, gets on the ball, makes that team tick. I was going to ask you, because we're putting now Harvey Elliott, and I'm hearing it on social media and different places, into that bracket, into the David Fairclough, Divock Origi, that sort of super sub bracket. Is that enough for now? Even if he stays that this season, is that still at his age? I know you've watched Liverpool before about him at all, and he's developing. Is that enough for now, even if he does it this season and maybe kicks on next? Should we accept that still, rather than putting pressure for him to, he's got to come in and perform and be this straight away?
Yeah, I absolutely think that should be enough at the moment. I mean, he's 20 years old, isn't he? And to be having this sort of level of impact already on a team that is, at the moment is right back to its top form. So a team that's going into every game hoping to win. I just think that says it's just we shouldn't expect. Not every player is going to be Jude Bellingham, and I mean, I'm saying that as if Harvey Elliott's some way behind. Like, obviously he's not Jude Bellingham, and he's not that freakish sort of incredible, comes through as a teenager and absolutely tears everything apart. But he's only 20 and he's having a massive impact on Liverpool, and he's doing so as I say, he's the player that people were looking to yesterday. And you think about some of the talent that Liverpool had on the pitch in those final moments, and it was like, where's Harvey? Where's Harvey? We've got to pick him out. I just think that says that he's just in an unbelievable place at the moment. And yeah, being super sub this season is a really good foundation, I think, to move on and be an absolute superstar for Liverpool. The fact he's already played so many games already, and he's just in a really good position. And fans should just be really, really excited about what's to come next, because he's just showing just that he's a remarkable footballer, and yeah, there is so much more to come from him. And yeah, we shouldn't be sort of worried that he's just the super sub at the moment, because he's still he's a child, basically. He's so young. So yeah, a lot more to come from him. But what he's doing at the moment is still really exciting.
Yeah, it definitely feels, whichever way anyone dresses it up, he's gone up a level this season. As long as that progression keeps happening, that's all we can look for. And I mean, speaking of subs, the interesting one, like you said, Harvey's the headline. Curtis Jones came on and made an impact, and maybe probably a less fashionable one that maybe didn't quite get the acclaim. Joe Gomez makes a real impact when he comes on at right back, and that allows Trent to sort of push on. I mean, we've seen that a few times now. Is the evidence starting to gather pace, shall we say, that Gomez there maybe more regularly, Trent pushing on? Are you starting to see it that way, or is it just that he did well and it's good to have? We should leave it at that.
I think it's good to have in terms of, I think what we're seeing now is that Joe Gomez has really sort of nailed what it is to play right back, because I think he did used to look a little bit uncomfortable there at times, and he looked like a centre half out there. But whereas now he's so good at holding that with the little 1-2 exchanges. He's got the pace to get in behind, and he gets his head up much better than he used to, and he's picking out passes, putting in really dangerous crosses. So he's come on leaps and bounds in terms of that. I think in terms of what it means for Trent and moving him into midfield, I still think I still think it's not something I'm absolutely desperate to do in terms of, because I think he's a number 8 rather than a number 6, and again, Liverpool are really well stocked in those number 8s. But I think what you've got an opportunity to do that late in games. I think when it comes about, and where Jurgen Klopp will look to do it, is when teams get really, really deep. So there's basically no counter-attacking threat anymore. You've got so much space where you can push Trent into that area, and you don't really need to hide him in any way. He can just be there. He can start his starting positions there, because the opposition are not going to press anymore. They're just looking to hold what they have. And that is exactly what happened against Fulham. He saw that Fulham were just, okay, we've got a bit of the lead here. We're 2-2. We can retreat a little bit, and thought, we'll back off. We'll give space. And so there's no, like I say, there's no need to hide Trent in those situations. And we saw that again against Crystal Palace. So I just think it's sort of horses for courses, really. If Liverpool are in that situation, that's a really good option for them, because they don't lose anything at right back as well. But I think with Trent, it's worth noting that obviously he does move into midfield eventually later in the game, but he creates 6 chances throughout the game, 14 passes into the final third. Nobody gets near him for those sort of numbers. And so that shows that even though he was playing at right back, he was hugely influential on what Liverpool were doing. Not a lot of those came in the final moments when he gets pushed into midfield. It was a lot of that was done from right back. So he was one of the few players who was actually playing well and was having an influence in the way that he was supposed to. As I say, I think that moving him into midfield is a break glass option in very particular situations. But it's good that Liverpool have got it at the end of the day, because I just think, it clearly works. It's helpful. It helps them have more threat in those final moments in games. And I'm sure we'll be seeing it again at some point this season.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, Over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yeah, I think that there was that stat, wasn't it? Liverpool have now won something like 18 points from losing positions, and it does feel like progressive, like we'll bring a forward, we'll change the forward line, switch those up. Then Harvey can come on to maybe change it. Then we can push Trent forward. It almost feels like Jurgen's got those options, like you say, break the glass, activate, whatever you want to say. And listen, it's working at the moment. So yeah, exactly. Horses for courses is probably the right phrase on that. I mean, on the other side, there is a few concerns which are naturally bubbling. You don't want to sort of overemphasize them when we are top of the league, but I'm sure you clocked this, that the forward line as a whole does look a little bit blunt, would probably be the phrase that I would use. What would you put that down to at the moment, realistically? And I know that's on the back of Mo Salah again, getting a goal and assist, hitting 200, but as a whole, it's just not quite flowing again over the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to what I said earlier in the podcast in terms of, I think fluency and attack is the first thing that goes when you get any fatigue. It's that the hardest thing to do in football is to break down a low block, and that's typically what Liverpool come up against in 90% of games. And that is the first thing that they've seemed to find difficult as soon as they've come in this period and got a little bit tired. And I mean, I'm not massively worried about that, and I don't think people should be, because I think earlier in the season, I don't think anyone would have said the forward line was a worry. Liverpool are second top scorers in the Premier League as well, just behind Manchester City. So, forwards aren't really an issue. Surely that collection of forwards is going to click again. We're going to see, hopefully we'll see a week of rest now. Don't want to see them near that Europa League game. Yeah. And then we'll see them bounce into these games that are coming up at Anfield. I'm really hoping that's going to be the case. And I think there's been a good share of goals around between them as well. Everyone's sort of contributed in this season. So I don't think the forward line is something to worry about. I just think they need a little bit of rest, a bit of not having 2-3 games a week seemingly as they have done recently, and hopefully that just gives them that little bit of pep back, and they can work on some stuff in training as well, and that will suddenly bounce back, because they just weren't an issue in the early part of this season, and it's just, as I say, that tiredness is maybe creeping in and making it a little bit more difficult for them. And getting Jota back would be really handy soon as well, because he is such a goal threat. He's probably second to Salah really in terms of his finishing ability and threat around the box as a poacher. So that will be helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, they've still, the goal record's still brilliant, and there's a big game coming up at the weekend, which should be good for it to click as well. But we'll come on to that later. I suppose the only other thing that a few people have sort of mentioned, and it is fair to call it out because we have praised him quite a bit, it's not quite happened for Ryan Gravenberch these last few games. I think I was personally surprised that Curtis Jones didn't start this game on Saturday. I mean, what would you put that down to? Is that just still giving time? He's young, that type of thing? Because it does seem to have been a noticeable drop-off that way. Yeah,
I think you're just going to get these dips, aren't you, from time to time with a young player who's coming into a new league, is still adapting, still learning what's happening. And also, he's struggling as much as anyone with the fact that Liverpool's forward line isn't quite clicking. So creatively, Liverpool are a bit sloppy, a bit of tiredness. This calendar that Liverpool are in at the moment as well is very, very English thing, isn't it, in terms of the intensity of it. So I think, again, he's kind of getting used to that. And so, yeah, I'm not too worried about that. I think you've got to remember, it's not that long ago, is it 3-4 games ago, when he comes on at Manchester City and changes the game in Liverpool's favour. So yeah, I think he's clearly a class act, and he's had a good start to his Liverpool career in general. We want to see him put it all together. And I think what's interesting, I think with the Curtis Jones things, I'm surprised he wasn't used. I kind of wonder whether he's carrying a little knock or something that's keeping him from starting games, because I think he would have been an absolute go-to in some of these games. Hopefully, there's nothing like that, and he is fit and he can play a big part, because I think for me at the moment, because Gravenberch's having that little stutter, maybe see Jones on the side, he's a really safe option in these big games that are coming up, and I would like to see him play in them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very surprised if maybe that big one he's not there for. And I mean, We're going to have to talk about the referees. I know we try and avoid it normally because it's a hot topic, but yeah, thinking of Curtis Jones, he was wiped out. And if the Sellers goal hadn't gone in, I suspect we'd have had a penalty and a Joel Ward second yellow. Now, the decisions here, there were some big calls, and I know there was some furore around these, David. I mean, the first one, I'm surprised this was argued or took so long. The Endo foul, or the one where Endo was fouled that led to the penalty, that was reversed. Straightforward for you, foul on Endo, that one?
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to kind of defend the referee in this situation. I think people get a bit het up really around these situations. So I think what people need to do is you sort of take a step back sometimes and park your allegiances and sort of think, come from the perspective of, okay, how is the why might it take the referee so long, or how come he's arrived at this decision that doesn't sort of tally with the decision I instantly reached? Calm down, come back and take a step back, as I say, and think about it. So when you actually look back and if you watch the Endo foul again in real time, I thought, yeah, looked a foul to me. But I don't mind the ref playing advantage in that situation, because if he gets that wrong and he stops a counter attack, that isn't right, is it? We don't want to see that. So he plays on in that initial phase, and that's fair enough. That happens. And then when he sees the replays, and if you watch the replays that he's shown on by VAR, the first couple, I actually don't think it looks a foul. And I completely understand why the referee goes, hang on a minute. Should I actually be overturning this? Because the first couple of angles are really not conclusive. It's until he sees the angle where you see Endo's face in the camera, Will Hughes is facing the camera, you can quite clearly see the leg comes around, trips in, he's got his hand on the other side. That is the most obvious angle. And they show it him last. So what I like is in that process there is that they've shown him every angle. He also has to be shown it in real time, which again, we want referees to do. So if you'd have just seen the two angles that you shown first and you didn't know what you knew and you hadn't seen it from the TV angle, the high angle like we all had, it's quite easy to see why the referee's not instantaneously go, yeah, foul, no penalty. But people get so angry and het up around these situations. They don't give the referees a chance. And ultimately, he comes to the right decision on that. And I think we should absolutely, in a period where we're talking, it should have been quicker. Well, if it should have been quicker, that's how we end up with situations like the Luis Diaz goal being ruled out, because people aren't thinking, they're not taking the time, they're not taking a breath to have a look at it. He looked at that, he got every angle, he made the correct decision. Fantastic. And I just think we shouldn't be complaining about that when we've seen so many wrong decisions previously. It's just madness to me that and I've said it, many a time, that the referees cannot win in those situations, because the decision is either a subjective one that people bizarrely call corruption, even if it's you could go either way, I would say, or it wasn't made quick enough, or Jared Gillette makes the decision in the Arsenal game. Oh, well, how did he see it on the pitch? So he's getting criticised for making the correct decision on field. It's just crazy. And I think we all, pundits, journalists, fans, managers, players, we all need to just calm down around this stuff. And like I say, sometimes approach it from the referee's perspective and see why it might take a little bit longer or why they've come to that decision. And I thought the Endo one was a really good example of that. Until he's shown that final really decisive angle, I don't want him to rush into the decision, because if he'd have rushed that and he hadn't seen that final angle, I actually don't think he overturns it. Yeah,
probably a fair shout. And like you say, that Havertz one that Jared Gillette gave, what a shout. I didn't see that in real time as well. So you've got to give him credit for that as well. It's a great spot. I mean, I think you're right. The one thing I took away from Saturday was, I think TNT Sports were literally on the verge of a GoFundMe page for Roy Hodgson because of the second yellow at one page and all those types. But that builds the drama it sells. I think that goes into it. But like you say, maybe taking a step back, it's just something that everyone should think about. I mean, the interesting one, and for me, the one that sort of I find intriguing, I'm trying not to go there, like you say, the penalty that's given on for the foul on by Quansah, sorry. It did feel, and I kind of got what people were saying at the time, like we carried on for a fair while, that one, David, before we went back. I mean, I suppose there's 2 points there. In the cold light of day, did you think it was the right decision? And the second thing, that delay for carrying on, because I'm sure you've seen it, people were like, well, hold on, Luis Diaz, and all those types of things. The game did seem to go on for a while. What was your take on those two things?
Yes, it's a penalty, isn't it? I just think if it happens, if there's any Liverpool fan out there who's thinking there's no way that's a penalty, just think, if Luis Diaz gets tripped in the box in that way, you're not screaming for a penalty. It's a trip in the box when the Mateta wins the ball, he gets the touch on the ball, and a clip on his ankles, and it makes him fall over. There's not even a dive there. I think he clips him in a way that it would trip you up. It would absolutely trip you up. And okay, so if we come to some agreement on the fact it's a penalty, the fact that there's no break in play is quite unusual. That there's no one, not a foul or a throw in or anything happened. So what we're saying is, okay, if we, by some bizarre chance, we get through a minute and a half of play without the ball going out of play, we don't want the correct decision being made after that. So that's the argument I feel that people are making. Oh, well, why did it take so long? Well, because there was no stop in play. It wouldn't have taken that long if there had been a stop in play. And we can't start to say, oh, well, because there was just by pure luck and pure chance, there was no break in play, no throw in, no anything, that we don't want to go back and make the correct decision. Right. I just find that absolutely madness. That for me is a nailed on penalty. And if Liverpool hadn't got it, you will be absolutely, aggrieved about that. It's a clumsy from Kwanzaa, the first sort of real mistake we've seen him make in a Liverpool shirt. He's still a young player, isn't he? But Liverpool can have few complaints about that one. It's absolutely a penalty. And, people should probably even more settle into that on the basis that, well, they won the game anyway. So don't be too downhearted about that. And it was the correct decision.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to be guilty a little bit of the hypocrisy, because I know full well, if, like you said, if that had been the other way, that would have been my prime question to you. Like, are we being hard done to with VAR and all those bits? So, yeah, it does flip both ways. There's no two, we've got to be straight down the line in this. And probably the final one, which again, it just has that feeling they made such a furore over this on TNT Sports and other places. The second yellow card for Ayew, that Harvey Elliott's breaking away. Maybe I'm looking too simplistic into this. That just felt like the right decision. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see there's a wide angle that I tweeted. If anyone's not seen it, might be worth having a look. And you see that Liverpool have got either a 5v3 or, if you give Crystal Palace the benefit of the doubt and the player in the middle gets back, then maybe a 5v4. It's a very definition under the laws, and it's under Law 12 if anyone wants to look it up. I keep getting people tweeting me asking, well, where's that rule? Okay, it's under Law 12 under cautionable offences about it, and it concerns when you stop a promising attack. And that every single time is a yellow card. Another spot-on decision by the referee. Just no question about it. And as you say, with TNT, I sympathise sometimes because I think commentators, and we're all guilty of this as journalists, and again, fans as well, you want the underdog to win a lot of the time, and because it's a better story. It is just more interesting when the underdog wins, and particularly because Palace had played really well up to that point as well and had really stopped Liverpool, made it hard for them. And obviously there's an affection to Roy Hodgson as well, which I'll never understand, but it exists. But it's, I can totally understand why you get on board with that. But the idea that the rules shouldn't be applied uniformly in situations which are barely, that is between the line of objective and subjective for me, because it just is, it's a clear trip in a situation where a promising attack's being stopped. It should be a yellow card every time. And if the yellow card's not shown, that would go down as a refereeing error. So I thought, again, got it absolutely right. And that for me is three decisions there that the referee, big decisions that had a huge impact on the game. Yeah. And the referee's got every single one right. And yet there seems to be this desire to discuss the performance and whether it was, another shocking performance by a referee. And that, again, to me, just underlines that they just cannot win in any situation, can they?
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, true. It is an interesting one. And I'll hold my hands up because we all kind of lose our heads for a minute at times. I've done it. But like you say, in the cold light of day, when you watch it back, yeah, you got to be straight down the line on these. And fingers crossed, in a way, I keep saying this, though, so I'm a hypocrite of it myself. We won't be discussing referees, but it seems to be the incidents, the things that come up. So,
regardless of whether they make the right or wrong decisions, we will be discussing them because that is the nature of the discourse at the moment. I really, honestly, I just want it to really calm down because it's crazy. Even if they're getting things right, they're getting hammered, and I just think it's very unfair. And we're never going to reach that dream situation where everybody agrees with the decisions because people are picking apart ones that are right. It's a shame, really. And it ruins football for me because let's talk about, the wins and the goals and the actually interesting stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it still staggers me that about this time on Monday, I'm sure you've heard of it. There's a program called Ref Watch, which loads of people tune into, like what that's got to do with the football. But hey, ho, that is a different topic we could go off on a proper tangent on. But bringing it back to the players, again, there was one player that kind of, and guys, that we look at a player sort of each week, focus on how they've been doing in the season. A player that has fallen under somewhat of a spotlight recently, Luis Diaz. I mean, David, the start to the season, 2-2. I mean, he's flying at the start of the season. There's no two ways about it. And then, again, there's a bit of a dip. There has been a few moments of high, like that last header the other night was absolutely sensational. No two ways about it. But it's probably, again, the last few games, there's been a few question marks under him. So how would you kind of view his season so far, how he's getting on?
Yeah, I think it's been up and down. I think that's fair to say. I don't think we've seen it at his best at the moment, but I think, he's getting a lot of scrutiny in this period at the moment where, I don't think a lot of Liverpool or any Liverpool forwards are playing particularly well. And that goes to Darwin Núñez. Mo Salah's not quite looked himself either. Right. I know he gets his goal at Palace, but hasn't been fantastic in this period. Gakpo either, really. So, his performances at the moment have got to be viewed in that context. And I think what he is doing for Liverpool at the moment is he's coming too deeper than you would like him to at the moment to collect the ball, but he is helping them get it forward. At least he's carrying the ball, and I think he's being hurt as well by not having that rotational option on the left-hand side. Jota's a big loss in terms of helping him. I think there's certain games that suit Diaz, certain games that suit Jota, and it's kind of, he's just being asked to carry the load at the moment. So it's hard. And I mean, we know everything that's going on in his personal life. He's got over a season where he didn't play much football either. So it's, you've just got to all throw all that in. And I'm just hoping, again, similarly to the rest of the forwards, really, that a bit of a rest week will help rejuvenate him and playing back at Anfield as well. And hopefully we can see him get back to his best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. You do notice it the last few games coming deep quite often. At peak Luis Diaz, we associate he's got the fullback isolated, going at the last man. And we still seen it a few times this season, like Ashley Young fell foul of it, didn't he? When, he does go to the byline. Probably the thing that, and maybe this is harsh, but I do want to ask, because it gets mentioned a few times, doesn't it? There's that almost, is there a lingering concern over the couple of knee injuries that he's had, the couple of operations, that he might just have lost that explosive half yard? Do you see it that way, or is it just a combination of things at the moment?
Personally, no. I think this is something people say, to be honest, about players when they've had an injury, is that, it's been said about Van Dijk. I remember people saying that last season, he lost a yard. Well, no, not really. He just wasn't playing very well. And, I watched Van Dijk when Mbeumo tries to get away from him against Brentford at Anfield earlier this season and hits the ball down the line to sprint it off. And Van Dijk easily outpaces him. And Mbeumo has a yard on him and he catches him and shoulders, leans into him, gets the ball out of play. So Virgil van Dijk had an ACL injury and he didn't lose a yard of pace. And I think Luis Diaz just isn't playing well at the moment. But the idea that he's lost this yard of pace, I just think it's such a go-to. It's a nonsense, really. I don't believe that at all. And I don't think Diaz was ever sort of Mane quick as well anyway. I think he's still a very quick player, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's ever quite as lightning as that. So I don't agree with that. I just think he's not playing fantastically well at the moment. What I want to see more of, and this is Liverpool in general, is to get him in more situations where he's one-on-one at the edge of the box or just inside the box. That isn't happening enough for me. And that's not Diaz's fault. That's the way Liverpool are playing at the moment. They're not as fluent in attack. They're not getting the ball into dangerous situations as frequently as they have done previously. So I think that's what I want to see is him put into the areas where he does his best work, because I think, dragging the ball up the pitch, yes, he's got that in his locker, and that's something Liverpool need to rely on at times, but he's doing too much of that from deep positions, and that's because Liverpool need it from him. So I'm hoping he will, like the rest of the forwards, will turn a corner coming into this period, because that forward line, they can't really keep getting away with it not playing particularly well, but it's been a difficult period, and I'm hoping things will ease off now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You do hope that's what Jurgen Klopp's saying to him, like you say, get into that area, isolate your last man, look at what's happened when you can, or both options to go down the line, like you say, cut inside, because we know he's got that in his locker to bend one in or make things happen. So yeah, fingers crossed the forward line do come to the party that way. I mean, I got to put these few to you because naturally, viewers asked me to, and I was going to anyway. Jurgen Klopp's press conferences are naturally coming back into the mix, aren't they? And the quotes and things, especially this time of the year. We're hitting silly season, so people will almost pounce on anything that's said, overanalyze it potentially. And you probably know where I'm going with this. The Klopp and the transfer quotes, the Matip, the questions around the defender. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. It was the last question that he was asked, wasn't he, by James Pearce about, transfers. And he, my words here, I think he seemed a bit spiky by it. He wasn't too happy. And then the eventual overall answer was, no, I don't think so. I don't expect anything to happen. Are you setting much stock in these comments, David, or do you think we're all just going a bit crazy over them somewhat?
I think I want to sort of address his spikiness first, because I think it's kind of unfair, really. His attitude around transfers sometimes is sort of bizarre to me. I think, look, if he hates transfers that much, then, why sign Szoboszlai this summer? Why sign McAllister? Why not go in with a midfield of Jay Spearing and James McConnell this season? If transfers are that sort of offensive, it's just nonsense. It's a big part of football, and he actually doesn't get asked about it that often at the press conferences. We hold back from asking about it because we know we're going to get an answer like that where he's kind of unhappy about it. And I really don't understand that. It is a big part of football. It's a big part of improving your team. It's been a big part of Liverpool's success under Jurgen Klopp. Yes, his brilliance, but adding the correct players at the right times and them fitting in seamlessly. So, and with Matip, it's going to be something that at least Liverpool look at in the summer. So is it a possibility that they move that forward to January? I don't think that is an unfair question at all to be asked in a press conference. I didn't really like his tone. I must say that. I think that's kind of unfair. But in terms of what you take from it and whether he's being truthful or not, a tough one, really. I mean, he does lie from time to time about these things, but it is also worth mentioning. And I kind of look back at this in the aftermath of what he said. About what he said. He was asked about transfers last December in the build-up to obviously signing Cody Gakpo in the end. And the quote was, and I wrote it down, he said, if something happens, you can imagine the situation we're in, that we are probably looking, if something happens, we will see. So he actually did, prior to Gakpo signing, he actually left the door open for it. Didn't shoot anyone down in that situation. So I think you kind of got to take it at face value, really, that Liverpool possibly aren't looking. And I think that is based on the sense that, okay, Matip's out for the season, but there's clearly a faith in Quansah. As I say, that was his first real mistake he's made against Crystal Palace. But if you're going to, what Liverpool had in that situation coming into this season was they didn't know it at the time, but 5 senior centre-backs possibly. And now they're down to 4, which you would say is a fine number if Quansah is ready. Now that for me is the huge question mark. Is Quansah going to start making mistakes now, or is he ready to be that 4th choice centre-back and end up playing quite a few minutes between now and then? Yeah. You and I would maybe struggle to answer that on the basis of the small amount of matches we've seen. But Jurgen Klopp sees him in training every day, and I'm sure he knows the answer to that question. If he thinks he's ready, then absolutely I'm fine with Liverpool going with 4 centre-halves for the rest of the season. That is an absolutely fine number to have. Most of the clubs have exactly 4. They wouldn't tend to have 5 senior centre-backs. Yeah. If he's not ready, and Liverpool think it's a risk to throw him in from time to time, then for me, they should be signing someone in January. We'll have to see how that pans out. Like I say, I take Jurgen Klopp his word on this one. I don't think Liverpool will be signing a centre-back or anyone else in January, to be honest. But whether that is a risk or not, only Jurgen Klopp can deep down know, because we don't know enough about Quansah to know whether he is ready to consistently play games if he's called upon.
Yeah, I honestly wholeheartedly agree with that. And I know there'll be people watching and listening to this thinking like, come on, we're in a title race potentially. This is time to strengthen it. And I get all those elements, but especially with someone like Jarell Quansah, the one thing I think is, and we kind of talked about this before, if he makes a mistake, that doesn't take him from brilliant prospect to terrible all of a sudden. We shouldn't do that. If someone said to you, define a footballer that's going to make a mistake, it's a 20-year-old centre-half. That's the nature of the game, learning. So if he thinks he's ready, and like you said, I don't think we know the answer to that, to consistently go in there, that will probably, be one to answer with the future, but it will be interesting to see.
It's worth mentioning that, mistakes that happen in terms of, the idea that the most important thing is that Quansah doesn't consistently make those mistakes. And as I say, they'll know whether that's happening in training or not, because centre-halves are going to make mistakes from time to time. Joel Matip fires one into the top corner against Tottenham in the final minute of the game. That cost Liverpool, so it can happen. You know what I mean? I think Joel Matip's an absolute class act. So it just shows that I just would be interested to know what they sort of think about Quansah deep down and whether they think he's ready. And as I say, if they don't think he's ready and they're going to go with the 4 anyway, I think that's a poor decision, and I don't want to see that. But we don't quite know at the moment. We'll sort of see. No. And I think with the clamour around transfers as well that happens is that, people, as you say, people will say, oh, it's a title race. You should just completely protect yourself and you should do this or that. But I can't remember a January window passing where Liverpool haven't been told they absolutely cannot allow this window to pass without signing anyone. I think it's happened for each of the last probably 20 seasons. I was probably going to say in the entire Klopp era, I can remember every time people telling me it had to happen. And that was whether Liverpool were running away with the league or whether Liverpool were behind, or, every single situation people were saying Liverpool had to sign someone. So I take that sort of thing with a pinch of salt. And as I say, it all comes down to where Quansah is up to. And I can't confidently say what the answer is to that. We'll have to find out maybe. And we are going to find out, I think, because as I said, I don't think Liverpool are going to sign anyone.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, and as ever with an answer, sometimes the truth's halfway between. Like, the young player has a swipe at Mateta, that might be part of his makeup. However, the young player that, as you know, almost plays that Van Dijk style against that, makes the attacker, plays chicken with him and, looks calm and composed, that's in his makeup. Maybe only games will give us the answer. We will have to see. And the only other thing, and I thought, I've got to ask you this, because this was really interesting to me. He got asked, and I know you were at the press conference, the Joel Matip situation, said, about the club doing the decent thing. And he repeated that a few times. And then he was pressed, could that mean a contract renewal? And he did kind of go into that. Now, the only thing that almost reminded me of, I'll say a couple of times, David, was Henderson. You remember when we got to Henderson going back a while, his contract, and he mentioned this, and then there was the Wijnaldum talk that way. I suppose two things to this. Did it surprise you a bit that he was quite open to talk that way? Because it felt like, for me, public pressure on the owners a bit and, the ones who make those decisions. And then I suppose for you, it's split because he's been brilliant this season, Matip, but a renewal for an injury plagued 33-year-old as he will be at the end of the season. How do you see those two things?
Yeah, I think his comments here had sort of been kind of misconstrued, to be honest. I think what he was saying was that, and this is my understanding as well from people I've spoken to, is that Liverpool will absolutely not allow Matip's contract to expire while he's undergoing his rehab. So he will, whether that takes till September of next year or whatever, they'll look after him. They'll make sure that he's okay and he's being paid while he's doing his rehab at the AXA. They won't be asking him to do that for free there. So they're going to look after him in that sense. Anything after that, no decision has been made in terms of whether they would sign him up to another 1-year deal or, keep him around beyond that. I don't expect that, to be honest. Like I say, it's my understanding that they've not made a decision on that, and I just can't see it happening. I think it's going to be Matip remains under contract till he's undergone his rehab completely, and then probably leaves the club on a free transfer and hopefully gets a move because he hopefully still got a few more years left in him of top level football because he's a class act and he has been for Liverpool. But I don't expect him to get a 1 or 2 year extension at Liverpool, to be honest. I don't think that's going to happen now because of I didn't think it was going to happen anyway, and the injury has pretty much sort of put the seal on that in terms of his future at Liverpool. But he won't be allowed to leave under a cloud. He will do his full rehab at Liverpool and will be under contract while he does that, which I think shows, as Klopp said it himself, a little bit of class really, and great to see Liverpool doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, even if it is this season is his last, be great to see a presentation for him like the others were last year on the pitch, all those types of things. But similar to you, struggling to see a renewal, especially with what's needed. But time will tell on that one. The questions from the viewers, you can imagine, I've siphoned out the 8,000 to 6,000 transfer requests and going through the names as normal. But there was an interesting few that sort of stood out that I did want to come to. The first one is this UEFA, the final group game of the Europa League. It is a dead rubber. We have to be honest on that. And like you said, a lot of people are sort of steering away towards no senior first team. I think as someone put, this is the one to stick sort of Kornemeyer up top with Mona Neuer behind him, sort of in that role. But from a great to see sort of kids developing, which ones do you think have got a realistic chance of sort of even starting in this one because of the nature of game, a real chance to shine for them?
Yeah, to be honest, genuinely for this game, I don't want to see basically anyone who's going to start against United to travel for this one. I just think Liverpool had such a busy period, and I know Jurgen Klopp sometimes shows a reluctance to fully rotate in these situations or completely leave everybody at home, but it just makes no sense whatsoever. If you've ground so many wins out recently and it's been so hard and the players have done so well in a really difficult circumstances, don't be dragging them on a plane now to take them across into Europe to play this game that is utterly meaningless. I would love to see sort of the entire team be made up and squad really be made up of kids. Maybe you give Harvey Elliott a start as an example of someone who would probably like the minutes and could do an hour and you wouldn't expect him to start against United, so it wouldn't do him too much harm to do that, even though he'll probably come on against United and win off the bench, obviously. But mostly otherwise, we want to see Luke Chambers at left back. I want to see Conor Bradley at right back, Kelleher in goal. I want to see James McConnell in midfield. As many youngsters as you can sort of pack in that starting 11 as possible, because there's just no need for Liverpool to put anything into this physically, because it will only cost them. That particularly true of the forwards at the moment. Absolutely need to be rested. They need to have a week off. Yeah. Midfield, as I say, you've got the likes of Elliott, who will probably like a start, and Curtis Jones, if he needs the rhythm, we'll have to see. But otherwise, I want to see a whole raft of changes, because it's just a huge risk otherwise and needless, really. Liverpool have put the bodies through enough during this period and reap the rewards of qualifying early by putting a sort of a team of kids out, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only worry I've got is, it's like you said, Jurgen does seem to like rhythm, and almost you're thinking with the forward line, just the way they're going at the moment, is he tempted to think I can get them a few goals here and move in? But the risks they outweigh the reward far more for me in that regard. And I have limited it just to one name with all the transfer talk, because there's a few that have mentioned it. I'm sure you've seen it yourself, and I may be pronouncing this wrong, but Maxime Lacroix, I think it's pronounced, the Wolfsburg centre-half, French international. Anything about him that you've heard at all? There has been a lot of requests for that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Not something I've heard anything about or sort of expect. As I said, I think January at the moment, I don't expect anything to happen. And he might be someone who's on the radar, I'd say, in terms of age profile and where he's up to contract-wise as well. So maybe someone they've looked at a little bit, but but not something I've heard anything concrete on or expect Liverpool to follow up in January.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And probably the final one, and I know there's 2 games in a week, so we shouldn't just ignore it. But obviously, the big one is Sunday, 4:30, Anfield, under the lights, getting towards Christmas time. I mean, Bruno Fernandes is out for them. Everyone's looking forward to this one. Bearing in mind that I appreciate we don't know the full situation of everyone injury-wise and who might be back. There was quite a few asked this, and I'd be intrigued to know it as well. Who are you starting for the United game? Because there is a few questions, especially around that midfield forward line. What are you leaning towards right now?
Yeah, so I think the back 5 picks itself in terms of Alisson, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk and Kostas Tsimikas. For me, I think that's a no-brainer. I think Tsimikas on that left-hand side, because you want that balance, and you think Liverpool are going to dominate the ball as well. So not necessarily a game for Joe Gomez to start out there. But midfield and forward line a little trickier. I think with the midfield, I think McAllister will be straight back in the 6, expecting to be fit for this one. That's the talk at the moment. Szoboszlai as well, sort of a natural pick, even though his form's dipping a little. Interestingly, just to quickly talk about this, because I found it interesting, is that he didn't actually create. Creatively, I feel like he's lost a little bit of something recently, but he actually ended up with a 94% pass accuracy against Crystal Palace, which I thought was really, really interesting, because I think it shows that he's not creating as much, but maybe he's playing it a little bit safe. And I wonder whether that is on instruction of the manager, whether he wants things a little bit more solid in that midfield area. I mean, it didn't work, whatever he was trying, to be honest, but I just thought that was an interesting one, whether it is an instruction from the manager and that is a reason why he's not creating as much at the moment. But anyway, I still think he should be in that starting lineup against United. And on the left-hand side is probably the difficult decision in that midfield. But for me, if Curtis Jones is fit, as I said, I think he has to be back in the team at the moment. He knows what these games are about. He keeps the ball, and Gravenberch's not been doing that very well. I think, he's floating around 75%-ish passing accuracy at the moment. You don't want to be doing that. Don't want to give United a sniff. So Jones has to be in there, and he wins his duels as well, which is important. And in terms of the forward line, Mo Salah obviously nailed on. A little bit more difficult elsewhere. I think Luis Diaz probably has to start down that left-hand side, because you don't have Jota. Hopefully he could even be back for Arsenal with the way he's getting on in training. If he could be back for this one, then it will probably be on the bench, and that will be a huge boost. But I think it will be Luis Diaz to start. And then it's Gakpo or Nunez is a really tough one. And I honestly, it's so difficult. I think Gakpo is playing marginally better at the moment. And obviously you lose something in terms of threat with Nunez, but he just fought, I don't want to be too harsh on him, because I think, again, he's another one. Every forward isn't particularly playing fantastically well. Yeah. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but he's a long time without a goal now. He's at 8 games, and, constantly offside at the minute. He's fallen into that trap of making those mistakes again, and missing chances as well. So I just think, maybe it would be good in this game to use him off the bench, and hopefully he can get a goal from there that will boost his confidence. But maybe with Gakpo, he just keeps hold of the ball, he keeps the pressure on. I would maybe just go for Gakpo, but it's so marginal that one. I wouldn't be disappointed at all if Nunez was to start, because I think he's close to getting it right, and he's just in a little dip at the moment, and development isn't linear. We can expect that, he starts the season well and sometimes falls away a little bit. But yeah, I just edge for Gakpo in this one.
Yeah, it really is tough. I think, like you say, development isn't linear, because a lot of people are looking at this like, it's back to last season. Like, think in real terms, it is a trough where he's had peaks. I mean, some of this season he's been absolutely brilliant. We've got to be honest in that, and his all-round performance. This is a significant trough. I think, like you said, it's that Bournemouth world-class strike in the Carabao the last time he scored, and he hasn't looked sort of just on it in his all-round game either, so to speak. So it wouldn't be a surprise. But either way, I mean, it gives you real options off the bench, like you say, with Harvey, and you'd expect. Well, definitely everyone's hoping that will be more than enough. And probably the final question I should ask you, because we're naturally going to be asking people this all week. If you had to predict the score and scoreline for the United game on Sunday, what would you steer towards?
I think United will try and keep it down, but I think Liverpool are going to run away with it in the end. I'm going to say 3-0. I'll take another 7-0 though. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. I do. I think, especially like you say, with Bruno out, I do think they'll sit tight, and I think they will also play literally counter-attack, for want of a better phrase, and it will be trying to break them down. But everyone expects us to do that. And like you say, for the misfiring, if you can't get up, the players will be up for this. We just know that factually.
I think what I want to see more than anything as well is a good Liverpool performance, because we can extol the virtues of grinding it out in a period like this. But as I say, I'm hoping they'll all get a rest of the Europa League game, and I want to see that freshness back and to be back at Anfield as well. And I want to see Liverpool look a bit more dominant and sort of make a statement really going into Christmas. If they can beat United and beat Arsenal, they know they'll be top with a nice little cushion at Christmas, and that would be very nice. But you want to do it in a convincing fashion as well. You don't want to stumble there, and because that gives you worries then, and they haven't played fantastically well for a while now. So hopefully they can win both and win well and convincingly and play well, and then you feel very, very good about what's going to happen over the remainder of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Especially those, like you say, those games coming up. Most of them are at Anfield. There's very little travelling involved. So you want to see the performances come as well as the results at this time of the year. And listen, fingers crossed, next time we're talking on Monday, we will still be top of the league, and 3 points against United will do that. So all it leaves me to really say as ever is, David, thanks for your time and your insight. Much appreciated as ever.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.